Alright, today we're cracking open a new snowblower project. This is an Ariens ST724, which to me means 7 horsepower. Also, I know that because it says 7 horsepower. And it's 24-inch clearing width, deck, chute, box, whatever you want to call it. We just worked on a 524 Craftsman. I want to show you guys something that had a whole ton of play in the blades up here. So this thing shows some signs of maintenance, which is super cool. There's almost no play. All the paint is on the back of the box for the most part. This one got a little bit of play in it, but a lot better than the MTD did. So that's exciting to me. Now, I got this thing for 20 bucks. So the first thing I like to do when I get a snowblower is check the oil. So this thing, I already looked at it, has some oil in it, so that's great. I would pull it over just to see if it pulls over, but we ain't got no recoil. Choke does things. We got a key on this thing. Throttle moves. Primer bulb makes some suction noises. Let's see if she got any gasoline up in her. Smells pretty old. I can't remember how many years I think the owner said he used it last year, the previous owner. Chute turns. That's pretty cool. So first thing I'm gonna do after checking the oil, I inflated the tires. I noticed something kind of cattywampus. I'm gonna put this thing up on end. Whole bunch of play in these tires. I noticed this thing has some kind of strange axle setup where the axle's buried way down in there. It's kind of strange to me. I don't know why they wouldn't extend it all the way to the end, but I haven't worked on very many Ariens, so I think that that's normal. These might be shear pins? I don't know. This is my first time working on one of these exactly like this, so time to learn. Let's get you guys set up on the tripod and we'll pull this cover off. Ah, tasty. So there's two types of people in this world. People who sell snowblowers and say that they stored their snowblowers inside, and then there's people who tell the truth. And I venture to guess what kind of person this guy was. Fine, it's in great shape, but you know, he told me this thing ran last year, which we all know means 5 years ago. So let's get into it. All right, so we're just gonna take a little gander at what's going on in here. All kinds of spidey webs and stuff. So this is our friction wheel. It's a little flat, but it's in pretty decent shape. Oh, she's cooked. Oh no. No. The friction wheel's cooked. All right. So many of you watching this, like myself, might be snowblower noobs, but long story short is there's a cable that is driven by you squeezing a handle, which in turn moves this friction wheel, which is a driven axle, to this plate, which is in some way, shape, or form spinning by the power of the engine. So as you engage your handle, this makes contact with this. But if she's clear cooked, this thing's not going to want to move. So what we're going to have to do is spray this thing with some PB Blaster, because we're going to replace it. But the cool part is you can buy these discs and keep everything else the same. but it's a little bit of a pain. So we're going to spray some blaster on these bad layers right here. And these ones over here, if you can see my hand. And we will figure out a way to remove that. But before we get too carried away, I want to see if this thing runs. Well, we got her up on end. We're going to pop these recoil screws out of here. They're on these Tecumsehs, usually just a 1/4 inch socket. And a 1/4 inch drive ratchet will get you where you need to be. There's Juan. Two. Still decent enough. That's good. All right, we need some recoil rope, which I have, and we'll rewind this bad Larry. Located the hole, kind of hard to see. There we go. Where the rope is supposed to come through. And I preset the spring, so I wound it until it got really tight. And then I stuck a screwdriver through, just holding it all together. That way it doesn't retract on my fingers. Now I'm gonna burn the end of about 6 feet of recoil rope. I'm gonna come through and try and land in that hole right there, which looks like it might cooperate really well. So let's do that. Great success. So we'll pull this through with some, needle nose. I'm gonna tie a big old knot on there, and then before I get any further, I'm gonna tie another big knot here. That way I don't end up retracting this all the way around accidentally. So we'll keep this from going too far. That's it.
I wait for someone to save. I wanna tell you something new. You drove us both into a wall. I drive away into the night, and I contemplate for a while.
Moment of truth. That is what we want to see. She wants to choke, but she runs. Hell yeah. In the meantime, I just took a 7/16 bolt and nut and I tightened up this axle here, and I'm about to take it off, but it removed almost all the slop in the wheel, so that's super cool. But we're gonna go ahead and remove this drive axle, so we'll get these wheels out of the way. Alright, so I'm in no rush to snap any hardware off. I don't have the parts for this evening, so there's no real rush. So I'm just going to shoot some PB blaster on these. Looks like they're just carriage bolts on the inside, so I won't go too crazy. We'll look at this Ariens company model and serial number, which for me it's 9302027 for the model number, and the serial number is 016043. So I'm going to take a gander on the interwebs for the friction wheel rubber disc, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll see if we can't get some parts, and then I'll show you how to take this thing apart. Alright, we let the old PV blaster do its work. Got these 4 3/8 out of the way. Nice and loose. Spoke too soon. All right, set these on the bench. So based on what I'm seeing here, there's not necessarily a way to remove this whole assembly other than from this side. It looks like the right hand side will come completely out, which is kind of what we want. All right, so we got, these are all loose. These are individual bolts, so we got to be careful not to drop any. All right, so we should be able to remove this whole bearing assembly. It's got a bushing in there, which is metal, which makes me very happy. That's why this thing is still intact. There's a little washer that keeps everything together, so note the orientation should be the same on either side, but the round portion, which mates up with this axle, was on the inside in case this is tapered and I can't tell. And then we should be able to just slide this axle. Oh, you know what? I got one more step. So the shift shaft right here, which slides the... so what happens is you put this in first gear and it sits right here. And as you move this friction wheel further to the outside of this wheel, it then increases the speed, in turn increasing your wheel speed. So what we need to do in order to slide this axle out is find a way to pop this sucker through without losing all the parts, which I think I can do. Let's see. So as we shift this thing, that moves over. So let's see, does it help us at all? A little bit. This assembly, bearing retainer, and the bearing, maybe, and the washer to come out as a unit with all of our nuts. We should be able to do is take this whole thing and rotate it. Like that. Still caught in the bottom one for some reason. Come on, you little bastard. There we go. Washer's out. There we go. So let's try not to lose this bottom washer here. So when we put this thing back in, we'll rotate it like that. We'll set our washers back up here and up here. But this time we're gonna slide this thing out like that. So when we go to reinstall it, we'll go like this. And back in. Okay. All right, we are out. Here's what our friction wheel assembly looks like. And we'll take these nuts apart on the bench. Whoa, don't want to lose our axle yet. Let's do it. All right, it's a new day. We're working on the snowblower. We got ourselves a brandy new friction wheel here. So let's make some room in the garage. We've been busy working on snowmobiles, working on other snowmobiles, working on the Chevelle, working on the dirt bike. We got a chain sprocket coming. Let's make some room in the garage. All right. All right. Let's see if we can't sneak this thing back in here. Oh, you know what I should do is pull these tires back off. All right, that's better. Let's see if we can't. First thing I'm gonna do actually is clean this plate off while it's all exposed. I'm sure I'm gonna drop a bunch of crap onto it anyways, but give us a fighting chance. And while we've got the disc out too, we'll just give this a little wipe down. If there's any packaging lubricants that got released onto this. Cool. Alright, now we're going to try to sneak this thing up in here. Now before we get too far, try and get these bad Jacksons aligned. And then we'll slide just the shaft over like that. And now we should be set in there. Now if we grab the other parts. Egg sandwich? Heck yeah! We're gonna put a little bit of grease on the outside of this shaft. A little bit of grease on the face of this washer. Put the washer on. We've got our bearing retainer. Let's grab on to this and slide the bearing retainer on. Looks like we need a little vertical lift there. And that should be good. Take these nuts, put those back on loosely. Cool. Now, this is going to be a little bit difficult. We have to get these washers snuck in here on the underside without dropping them into Neverland. And we're gonna... No, please don't leave the chat. Alright, so I got the bottom washer started. And we're going to take the top washer and snake it right on through. Carefully. Alright, so here's what we did. Got the bottom piece in. What I ended up doing is sliding the gear off of the assembly here. So I was able to get it out and lower. And I got the bottom washer in. We're going to line the top washer up before we get too much further. We have to slide everything over, including Nice gear shifter. Get us enough room to fit the gear back on the end of the shaft. Like that. And then we gotta make sure this shifter assembly is back in place. And we gotta slide that sucker through. Keeping everything together, we'll slide the whole shaft over. And then we can set everything down. All right. Now, we'll go ahead, slide our greased washer back on. Slide our bearing back into place. Move you guys over. The bearing's in place. We can hold the shaft from the other side. And pop that bearing retainer plate on. Get a couple nuts started. There we go. Now if we take a look, we've got our gear lined up where it needs to be. Washer on the bottom, washer on the top. We've got our shift. If you look way down deep inside right there, this arm goes through and goes into a groove. Make sure that's not dancing around. Now, grab some other parts. Slide our washer on. Alright, so the detent portion goes inward. We're going to put a little bit of grease on this. Okay. That bad Jackson slides right on in there. Pop these on through. Move this shifter all the way over. A good friend of mine recommended using anti-seize because it doesn't fling as bad. He also mixes this anti-seize with a little bit of WD-40. But don't tell him I told you. Other side. We went a little heavy, so we're just gonna before you slide your wheels back on. Everything spins freely, and if we grab onto that friction disc by engaging the handle, that's what we like to see. Very cool. Moves down here. now that we had it up on end for so long, I didn't even notice a little oil leak from this dipstick here. Let's just tighten this bad area up. Gonna let that seep down a little bit longer, but looks like we lost some oil. All right, we're gonna drain the old gasoline out of this thing and put some fresh 91 non-ethanol in there. Let's turn the gas off first. Still smells like trail mix. These fuel lines are a little old, but still in decent enough shape. I was hoping to not have to replace them. Come on, come on, come on, thank you. All right, let's see what's left in this line. Not a whole lot. And we're gonna need 2 minutes to do this. Didn't even leak a drop. Good time to check. Make sure your vent is working. If you tighten that up, you can tell that the flow is slightly interrupted. All right, since we're in here and we know there's old fuel in the carb, I'm just going to do some preventative maintenance. And there's definitely gas in here on the floor. Get a little bit of gas, a little bit of air in here before I lose the last brain cell I have remaining. Alright, 7/16. Alright, 7/16 deep socket. We're going to test out our little drain here. That drains. We're going to crack this carb float bowl banjo bolt loose. A little bit of disgusting gas pour out. Now we'll shut the gas off for now, so we don't get it everywhere. Okay, banjo bolts out. Set that on the bench. And this wasn't leaking, so let's see if we can do it without destroying the gasket, maybe. You jerk, thank you. A little bit of Mountain Dew in there. Let's see. How's the float looking? Jelly. All right, we're gonna take this carb off just to do the right thing. All right, so there's a Phillips head screw on the front, right here. 2 Phillips head screws that go in here and here on the face. And then what else? And a 5/16 that goes right through here, or excuse me, right through here. And then I took this whole assembly after removing this little wire from up here, which I don't think I necessarily even needed to pull out, but it gave me a little more slack, and just slid the whole box forward and dropped it down to where it currently is. In order to get everything off, I had to remove the choke cap here, so we'll keep that off for now. I did put a little bit of blaster down here, even though I'm going to take this carb off. This is the fuel line that went under the gas tank. This is the other end that I have not yet removed. I'm going to pull that off completely, drain it out until the fresh gas comes out. One of the clamps broke. I'll put a new clamp on. And we're going to remove the carburetor using these big old Phillips heads here. What else did I want to show you guys? I think that's it, so let's do it. Oh, that's what else I wanted to show you. There is a primer bulb, which I'm glad we took this apart. This is the old line. The good news is we can still reach and pop the new line on like so, but we're going to keep it off for now till we reinstall the carburetor. So in the meantime, see if we can do this without destroying this fuel line too much. Give this a little persuasion and a little yank. Cool. We'll drain this out. I'm going to temporarily reinstall this float bowl. All right, now if we look, we want to reinstall all this linkage the same exact way. I'm going to do this while this is upright. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid love down in all these areas. Cool. All right, so we'll notice that the breather hose, excuse me, the petcock pump hose, if you will, goes on top of this piece of linkage, which shouldn't move. We've got 1, 2, 3 locations. When this is closed, there we go. 1, 2, 3 locations. When this carb is in this position, the throttle is in this position, it's in the top left hole. And we're in the top hole on this one in case that Z-clip were to fall out. And all right, let's see if we can't get a big old Phillips in here. Okay, that was easier than I expected. All right, that is why we keep our gearbox covers on, if you can even call that, our carburetor covers on, because it keeps the moisture, generally speaking, out of where it should not go. Second screw. All right, now we'll take this carb, go like this, maybe. Please. Please. And this Z-clip is fighting us. There we go. All right, we'll keep that right there. In the meantime, we'll put our Phillips back in. Wow, the inside of that engine looks really good. I can see the valves, just like no rust in there. Wow, this thing must have super low hours. I don't know why I keep thinking that, but anyways, we're gonna put a new Tecumseh clamp on this thing. Leave that there for now, and let's move over to the bench. So this is our banjo bolt. This has some kind of air fuel mixture piece that threads in here. So what I did before I disassembled this is I took a flathead screwdriver and I walked this all the way in. I know it is 1.5 turns out. So I'm gonna remove that. Make sure there's a little washer on top of the spring. And then we're gonna clean all this off. There should also be a gasket that goes on before this banjo bolt goes on. So we're going to separate all the rubber pieces from the metal pieces. So we got metal, and then we'll remove our carb bowl, which is kind of nasty. The dark hair in there, that's pretty gross. All right, so this float should not really be this color. Not a huge deal because it was running before, but I want to sell this thing and feel good about it. So we're going to take that pin out, remove carburetor, float, and the needle. Needle sits right in there like so. And then we'll grab one of these bad layers. Another cheat code I've recently learned is if you take a little bit of oil, whether it's PB Blast, or you can kind of keep these things a little more hydrated when you take them off. This gasket's still good. So if I can get behind this thing without destroying it, there's a chance I can just reuse it, but I'm sure I'll burn in hell. Somebody in the comment section is going to be like, I can't believe it, it's a $2 gasket. Yeah, well, it's still good, so I don't want to hear it. Cool. Yeah, if you hit this with carb cleaner, all these rubber pieces tend to expand and blow up, and then you can't get them back into place. So we're going to do the same thing with this little banjo bolt O-ring. Alright, so what else do we have going on here? Not a whole lot. So this is a throttle adjustment. Spring still works. Here's our choke. We already gave this thing some liquid persuasion. That's pretty promising. Let's see. So there is a seat down in there that looks like it's brand new, which is super cool. So I'm gonna go easy with the carb clean on this bad Larry, because it, apart from this discoloration from the ethanol style gas that was in here, it's really pretty clean apart from all the fluids I'm putting in it right now. So I have a float, excuse me, I have a needle remover and putter inner, I think is the technical term for it. This is a Tecumseh part. It's 670377. So it's got this special tip on it where you can reinstall a needle into a seat, or you can remove one like that. So this is a little seat. It's in really good shape, but we're going to take it out and try not to lose it because I don't want that thing blowing up either while I clean this out with carb cleaner. So let's get these parts set aside. Does a good bad go? I'm gonna get demonetized now. Jason Aldean. Tough getting gloves on when you're sweaty. New placemat, ready to eat. All right, let us get the expensive stuff out of the way. That's a really good sign. That's our where our primer bulb line comes through. A little bit of gunk floating around now. So we're gonna hit this area right here. Should come out the bottom. And we're gonna go in where the fuel line comes in. Fuel line. We're gonna go. I don't think that that's actually a port, but I got a little needle here. I'm gonna give this thing a poke. Just clean out around it, see what's going on in here. straight in the main jet. Should come right out the face. Ah! Don't drop your carburetor. There's a little hole right on the face of where your choke goes in. Comes right in the base of the carb. Grab a toothbrush. I make sure to use my wife's, that way mine doesn't get dirty. Anyways, you guys get the point. I won't make you suffer through much more carburetor cleaning. But I'm just going to get rid of all this nastiness, clean this thing up. We're going to use the brush on this float. I also like to take these and just set them in something that already has liquid in it to make sure that the float does in fact float. Look at all this nastiness on there. It's crazy. It's not supposed to be like that. That's insane. All this black tar, that's all gel. Wow. Alright, so we got a ways to go when it comes to cleaning, but we're going to let this sit in some carb clean concoction for the evening and let it eat away on its own. We'll get right back with you. Alright, carb's all cleaned up. Took a ton of work, but got my seat pressed back in there with that Tecumseh part tool. Everything's moving smoothly. One thing I did do is I removed this jet, if you will. I think it's an air screw. It was one turn from all the way in. And I cleaned up the needle. I cleaned up the float with a brush, and I ended up using a Scotch-Brite pad. Now I got the bowl all cleaned up, so I'm just gonna reassemble this thing back together right now. All right, we got the carb reinstalled. We put our throttle blade through the correct hole. Reinstalled our wire here. Pop this cover back on. Put our choke back on. Currently checking the oil before I fire this thing up again because a little bit leaked out when I had it standing up on end. But we're gonna get this thing up to the proper height. I went around and just checked all the hardware. I had forgotten to loosen the outside, I had forgotten to tighten the nuts on the outside of either side of this, so made sure to do that. But let's get a little bit more gas in this thing and roll it outside once the oil's topped off. Choke, keys on, a little bit of sauce, primer bowl. Gotta get ourselves a new handle. All right, so we got the thing up on a block. I also like to adjust these. Usually what I do, as I'm getting sidetracked here again, is I'll loosen these up and then I'll slide these up to the top. I'll put a little like 1/2 inch piece of wood underneath, right where that block of wood is, and then I'll just tap these down smooth with the ground, and that's usually right about where you want them to be. But yeah, we got a 5/8. We're gonna take the cap off this pipe here and change the oil.